Everyone knows the Rolex brand, the watch brand that has reached the top of the world. Did you know that Rolex is a charity? Hello fellas, welcome to a new video. We walk you through the 10 things you didn't learn about Rolex. The founders? Wilsdorf, one of the two founders of Rolex, tried to choose a name that would sound good and be easy for people to say who spoke different languages. He understood that the name has to be short and visually appealing on a watch. He decided that it should contain 5 letters. He then began putting every letter in the alphabet together in innumerable combinations. Approximately 100 names were thrown together, but none of them spoke to him prior to the day when history was written. As the man himself stated, throughout his makeup, they prefer him because he is direct and has an expensive-sounding voice. Rolex moved from London to Geneva, not because the best watches in the world are made there, but to save taxes. The company was started in 1905 by a 24-year-old with his brother. 3 years later, they decided to make the watches themselves. Rolex officially left London in 1919 because import taxes were rising rapidly due to the war, and Switzerland was a good choice because of its neutral position and the fact that skilled labor was available there. Not only that, but as we mentioned earlier, Switzerland is also a tax haven, so it was the obvious choice to move. Charity. Actually, Rolex has a Swiss charity registration. What do you say? Let's explain this in more detail. After Wilsdorf's wife passed away in 1944, the foundation was created, and all of Rolex's ownership shares were given to it along with detailed guidelines on how to manage the business's funds. Private charities are exempt from disclosure requirements under Swiss law, and the firm claims that donations are kept a secret. Whether or if anyone has ever received a donation from this foundation is unknown. Additionally, because a charity officially owns the Rolex brand, they also profit greatly from tax laws. Hans has never owned anything other than Rolex and its shares. There are no shareholders or owners of the business. As mere shareholders, they have no ownership stake in the business. Since there is no requirement to produce profits for shareholders, the company can simply reinvest all of its escaped taxes in order to continue its efforts to hone its craft, while also paying its employees a staggeringly high wage. The craft. Making a single Rolex watch takes almost a year. Rolex watches are extremely expensive because of this. All of the timepieces are made by hand. Each Rolex watch is still made individually, even though the factory produces thousands of watches every year. To make sure the watches live up to Rolex's high standards, they are tested. Only those tasks in which robots produce a better final product than a skilled human worker could ever hope to are carried out by machines and robots. It is likely that it takes a watch a full year to reach the market because of the time-consuming extensive testing that is done on each individual watch. The fake ones. Never buy a fake. If you can't afford it, choose a more reasonably priced but genuine brand. By purchasing replicas, you are not doing anyone any favors. To educate you a bit, there are 3 areas where watches are sold. Genuine dealerships with authorized retailers in upscale locations are indicated by the white area. People selling potentially real watches without a license or permit are said to be operating in the gray area. Those who sell fake watches do so on the black market. You would need a highly qualified friend in the watch industry to prove it, so don't get your hopes up. There are very few sellers in the gray area. Did you know that dealers are trained to spot a fake Rolex watch, by the way? When determining whether a Rolex is a replica or an original, look for the following. The first and easiest red flag to see is the second hand of the watch. A genuine Rolex keeps time continuously, rather than skipping from one second to the next. Second, it is challenging to fake a genuine Rolex because of the Cyclops lens that magnifies the date on the front. Most fake watches will skip this step, so the date will look the same size. The third thing to pay close attention to is how the finished item is finished. There should be no cheap materials used because we have already discussed how difficult it is to assemble a real watch and how meticulous they are about every little detail. Fourth, when the tape is plugged in, there should be a serial number. If something seems off, it's probably a fake. The serial number is one item that is important to look for. The quality. Rolex embedded their crown logo very smoothly where the 6 o'clock should be. Because the glass is of such high quality and cannot be cut by anything other than diamonds, it is very difficult to identify and extremely difficult to replicate. This is done with incredible accuracy and should be almost invisible to the human eye. The scam. In 2008, Bernie Madoff defrauded Rolex of almost $1 billion. When CEO Patrick Heininger announced his resignation for personal reasons, the watch industry was shocked. Since Vilsdorp's passing in 1960, he and his father, Andre, had been in charge of the group. They had no indication that their dynasty was about to collapse. In the $65 billion Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, it was discovered that Rolex had a sizable investment. This man may have been the perpetrator of the largest investment fraud in history up until 2009. He was sentenced to 150 years in jail. Ironically, Rolex was Bernie Madoff's preferred watch brand, and his entire collection of pricey watches was auctioned off after he was convicted to recoup some of the money. It turns out that Rolex was one of the companies that invested in Bernie's fund, despite the company's official denial of the claim. The total amount raised was only $600,000. Speaking of crimes, Rolex was complicit in additional offenses. The sponsorships. The Wimbledon competition's official timekeeper is Rolex. Soccer, cricket, and tennis aren't the only sports that a true enthusiast is interested in. Since Rolex was appointed the official timekeeper in 1978, there has been a relationship between the brand and tennis. Despite having a number of tennis stars as ambassadors, Roger Federer, the greatest tennis player ever, is their most well-known face. They happily pay him $15 million a year to be their sponsor. The profit margin. On each watch it makes, Rolex makes a profit margin of more than 60%, even though the cost of raw materials is much lower than the price you pay for it. A Rolex watch's price is still reasonable, because you end up paying for a significant amount of intangible value, such as innovation, heritage, something that took years to perfect, and the time and knowledge of the best watchmakers in the world. The most expensive Rolex. The most expensive Rolex available for direct manufacturer purchase is a Rolex GMT Master with diamonds, which sells for just over $500,000. They'd essentially covered a pricey Rolex watch with as many diamonds as they could. You may be wondering why anyone would spend $500,000 on a Rolex with diamonds. Cristiano Ronaldo has been spotted wearing this watch. Which brings us to the end of the video. We are curious to know what your favorite Rolex is. Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until another video.